We call that BO for short. And BO cultivates innovation and creativity through leadership coaching as well as organizational development. I became an associate certified coach through the International Coaching Federation in 2024. But my background is in nonprofit volunteer engagement and community outreach. I'm also deeply connected to AmeriCorps as both an AmeriCorps alum at the Heart of Kentucky United Way, and as a former site supervisor at Harvesters, the Community Food Network, which is a Feeding America food bank. And I've also been a program development officer, an AmeriCorps program development officer for the Kansas Volunteer Commission. I earned my CVA credential while I was working with Habitat for Humanity in 2022, which feels like forever ago now. But now through BO, I get to support change makers in new ways. So in addition to leadership coaching and organizational development consultation, we are also a national service enterprise training and implementation partner in partnership with Alive. Would you like to go to the next slide for me, please? So today we're exploring strategic visioning and values alignment. And this session is designed to help us connect our personal values with our organization's goals and explore how somatic practices can support that alignment. So somatic practices are approaches that integrate body awareness. And in our context, we're integrating body awareness into personal development and leadership to help us embody our values and support emotional regulation so that we can lead with presence and with integrity. Some common somatic tools that you might have heard of or already be familiar with are breath work, using the breath to regulate the nervous system, posture awareness, so noticing how you hold yourself, not only in alignment with your body, but also in different situations and how that might affect the way that we show up in space. Body scans might look like observing sensations in the body without judgments. And finally, movement, which could look like so many things, but commonly gentle stretching or walking to shift energy. I believe that somatic awareness helps us become fully integrated leaders who bring their whole selves to work. Somatic practices offer an opportunity for us to pay attention, to notice, and then to intervene skillfully. So in this way, somatic practice becomes a tool for the leadership competency managing the self, and ultimately helps us support ourselves, our teammates, our organizations, and our communities in a more comprehensive way. Next slide, please. We'll have a couple of opportunities today for us to practice somatic practice. And we'll start with a centering exercise in just a moment. I want to share some background. The word somatic comes from the Greek word soma, meaning the body and specifically the living body. Somatic practices focus on the experience of not just the body, not just physical movement, but the internal sensations, emotions, and energy that shape how we show up in the world. These practices are used to increase self-awareness, build resilience and emotional regulation. They're used to deepen authenticity and connection and align our values with embodied action. I do want to say before we dive in that I realize some of you may be encountering somatic or reflective practices for the first time today, and others may be familiar, but may not have integrated this into your professional lives. I understand that in either case, this might be new and a hard thing, and I appreciate that. I also know that many of you are in areas in the office and may not feel comfortable with a deep reflection because of the physical space you're occupying today or access to privacy. So if that's the case for you, I invite you to simply listen along and offer any insights you might have as we continue in the chat. So let's take a few moments as we begin to connect with ourselves in this deeper way. So wherever you are, allow yourself to settle. You may bring attention to the breath. Begin to find some stillness for a moment. And as you bring your awareness to the breath or to any other anchor that might help you in your practice to pay attention, consider where you found yourself, what position you found yourself in. Notice beginning with the feet, and then slowly moving your way up the rest of the body to the legs, to the thighs, paying attention to the hips, working your way up the spine, allowing your awareness to arrive at the shoulders. Once you get to the neck, you might consider any ways that you might want to move. Maybe dropping the chin down to the chest and back up. Maybe moving your head from side to side, or even twisting the spine, some bigger movements. Move in whatever ways you need to. And then when that feels satisfied, take a big breath in. Let that out. Then come back to center. Begin to wiggle your fingers and toes, maybe rolling the hands. Let your awareness come back to this space. Amy, if you'll send us to the next slide, please. So from this place of center and connection, consider a value that helps you stay grounded in your work. Take a moment to reflect, and you might choose from this list, or you might name your own. So drop that value in the chat when you're ready. Ooh, I'm seeing some good things here. Trust, loyalty, authenticity, yes. Empathy, kindness. A value for me is curiosity, strength. Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing. Amy, would you send us to the next slide, please? There are 4 components of organizational strategic visioning. And those are the vision, the mission, our values, and our goals. So we'll work through the relationship between these components using a case study in just a few moments. Next slide. Strategic visioning is the process of imagining and articulating a compelling future. It's not just about our goals. It's also about aligning these goals with deeper values and deeper purpose. So our vision is our desired future state. Our mission is our purpose, our reason for being. And then our values are those guiding principles that you've named in the chat that shape our behaviors and our decisions. And then our goals are those specific measurable outcomes that move us towards the vision. Next slide. Envisioning matters here because this is what provides clarity, it's what builds cohesion, inspires action, and helps us to navigate complexity. And a vision is especially powerful when it's rooted in our values. Next slide. So, for consideration, think of a time when you felt deeply aligned with your work. What values were present in that moment? What vision were you working towards? Drop that in the chat. Collaboration and growth. Yes. Values that are present, commitment and collaboration. Wonderful. We'll let some others chime in, but we'll go ahead and move to the next slide. So Topeka Habitat for Humanity is one of Bo's service enterprise partners, and they've also just begun a year of leadership development with us. And part of the work that we're doing together is understanding and creating an organizational culture that is in alignment with the team's values specifically. When I say team values, those are a little bit different than organizational values that create the structure for our vision and our goals. So team values in this scenario, in this context, I'm referring to how we agree to be in partnership with one another as an internal team. So Topeka Habitat for Humanity's mission is to promote housing for low-income individuals in Shawnee County, Kansas. And they envision a community where everyone has a decent place to live. Their organizational values are strength, stability, self-reliance, and shelter. So I'm going to pose two questions to you that you can drop your answers to in the chat as well. So we kind of think through this case study together. The first is, how might these values, strength, stability, self-reliance, and shelter, show up in strategic goals? So if this were your organization's mission, vision, and values, how might you use these values to inform your strategic goals? And the second question I'll pose while you're thinking about that is, what might value misalignment look like? You want to drop that in the chat. I think Amy will elevate those ideas. This were your organization's mission, vision, and values. How might you use these to inform your strategic goals?
While others are typing in the chat, I can share what I was starting to type in the chat. So everybody else can get some more time. But I was going to say, with that self-reliance, how we would structure the work around bringing that neighbor voice into the process, right? Like how we would empower through the work that we're doing, rather than, I think that would be contrary, would be doing it for.
Yeah. So I'm hearing maybe a value of yours showing up in that answer of collaboration.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lisa has put certainly a stable financial state for the org and actually bringing shelter options to community members. And
Yeah.
then Crystal said misaligned values, I think, would be opposite of the org values, such as weakness, instability, and dependency.
Yeah, I think dependency is an important one there as we're thinking about self-reliance and independence. And sometimes when we're in value misalignment, that can be really detrimental to our organizations, especially if we don't realize it right away, right? So things like codependency happening with maybe our clients or our partners. would be an example of misalignment here. Going to send me to the next slide. I want to make sure that we save enough time for our somatic practice together. So I won't take a deep dive into the second case study, but I will share Bo's mission, vision, and values. So our mission is to cultivate innovation and creativity through leadership coaching and organizational development. And we envision a world that grows healthy people, organizations, and communities. And our values are courage, curiosity, creativity, and collaboration. Next slide, please. Individual values are personal beliefs that guide behavior. And then our organizational values are shared principles that shape culture and strategy. An alignment between the two of these fosters trust, engagement, and purpose. And conversely, misalignment can lead to things like burnout, conflict, or disengagement from both our team and from those we serve, as well as our volunteers. So on the next slide, let's consider, where do your personal values align or maybe diverge from your organization's values? Let's get some responses in the chat, and we'll elevate other voices in the room. Where do your personal values align, or maybe where do they diverge from your organization's values? I'll share one for me while you're thinking. One of our values, collaboration. As a leader, sometimes I do not do a good job of asking for help or reaching out to my teammates in critical moments. So I have to reframe that response to invite the value of collaboration into the work that we do and center and prioritize that for our organization's work to move forward. Any other examples of values that personally align with your organizations, or maybe don't?
I would say for me, one of our values is facilitating innovation. And that is something that I would say was not in alignment with me for a long time. And then I absolutely am very much aligned with that now. But the other one that I'm a little less aligned with is the quality work environment. And I find sometimes it's just because there's so many things happening that I tend to run and not be able to kind of slow down and enjoy. Um, let's see, Crystal has also said one of our values is compassion. And I feel as a volunteer director that it is important for me to have compassion for others. And I'm always willing to help others.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Crystal. Um, I find that's one that could also get out of alignment for me when I'm feeling things like burnout or when I'm feeling things like overwhelm and being overextended. So I wonder how we could invite compassion to continue to show up in our work in response to those feelings of fatigue, perhaps. We'll move to next slide and elevate any other responses as they come in. So values-based leadership is the practice of leading from a clear understanding of your core values and using them as a compass for decisions, relationships, and strategy. It's not just about what you do, it's about why and how you do it. Values guide our behavior, they shape our culture, and influence trust and credibility. Next slide, please. And values in leadership matter. They influence our decision making. Values help leaders navigate ambiguity and make principled choices, lead with integrity. They influence the way that we build culture. Leaders model values that become embedded in team norms and define our organizational culture. They matter to conflict resolution. So creating shared values, especially for teams, provides common ground for navigating tension or surfacing tension in order to be able to move forward. And this also impacts strategic alignment. So values ensure that goals and actions reflect our deeper purpose. Next slide, please. So in leadership, we often focus on strategy. We focus on communication and decision making. Somatic practices add a crucial layer to that, and that is how we inhabit our leadership, how we embody our leadership. And some grounding principles, some main principles for somatic practices include centering, so cultivating presence and balance, especially when we're under pressure, and grounding, feeling stable and connected to your values, boundaries, recognizing and honoring personal limits, and finally, resilience, staying present and responsive in challenging situations. Values are not just intellectual, they're felt experiences as well. And somatic practice helps leaders notice how values show up in the body. And in terms of strategic visioning, somatic practice invites us to feel our vision, not just to think about it. So when you imagine a future that's aligned with our values, our body responds. Next slide, please. We'll spend some time in somatic practicing, integrating values alignments and strategic visioning. So I'll guide us through a simple somatic reflection, and then we'll come back together to debrief on that experience and close our time together with some next steps for your practice in values-based leadership. So for now, I invite you to get comfortable. I don't think you need to turn off your cameras, they're already off. Um, but do whatever you need to do. Perhaps close your door if you can. That helps you to feel safe to be more connected. And then begin to allow yourself to settle. Notice if you could be any percent more comfortable. Make any changes that you need to. I invite you to identify an anchor for your practice. That could be the breath. That could be the sound of the fan in your office or the space that you're in. It could be the feeling of the fan. Any sort of external experience that might help you stay present. So notice the quality of that anchor. Allow that to bring you into now. You bring your awareness to your feet. Notice the position that you found your feet in here. And allow them to sink into the floor, feeling heavy. Do the same as you bring your awareness up the leg, to the thigh, allowing the back of the leg perhaps to sink into your chair. Being pulled towards the ground. Bring your awareness to the hips. Allowing them to become heavy in your seat. And the same as you move your attention up the body, allowing yourself to become thick, to become heavy, to settle. And as you settle, I invite you to settle into you, into the center of yourself. If it's comfortable for you, take one arm, your right arm, perhaps wrap that across your chest, placing your hand over your heart. And take the other arm the opposite way, wrapping that around the belly. To support yourself with your arms, bring your awareness back to that anchor. You're feeling the breath. You're feeling whatever external stimuli you've chosen to notice. From this solid, steady, sturdy foundation, I invite you to consider one of your core values. Drop that into the center of yourself and allow that value to grow there. As your value takes root, imagine that it begins to glow. Maybe starting out a small ember, and then eventually that glow begins to emanate throughout your body. Warming your purpose, warming your movement, warming your intention. Imagine your whole body glows with the essence of your value. You are your value, and your value is you. From this place of embodiment of your value, I invite you to consider your dream for the future of your organization or for the future of your community. And as you dream through the lens of your value, consider, what would it mean for your organization to embody your value? What would it mean for volunteers to serve from your value? What would it mean for your clients to receive care from your value? What would it mean for your community to live out your value? As you hold this vision close to you, notice your body. Notice any sensation that may have appeared or any changes to your sense of alignment. Notice your posture. And come back to the breath or to your anchor. Bring your awareness back to your feet. Squeeze all of the muscles in your feet, curling your toes, maybe feeling an arch in the foot. Squeeze that together, tight, tight, tight. Let that release. The same thing with the calf muscles. Squeeze those together, tight, tight, tight. Let those release. Squeeze all of the muscles in your thigh, front and back. Tight, tight, tight. Let that release. Squeeze all of the muscles in your bottom, around your hips, tight, 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 tight. And release. You contract, squeeze all of the muscles in your stomach and your abdomen. Hold them together, tight, tight, tight. Let that release. Move to the arms, squeezing your arm muscles and your hands, balling up a fist, squeeze them together, tight, tight, tight. And release. Finally, scrunch your face up like a prune, squeeze it together, tight, tight, tight. And release. Open your mouth wide. Let that release. Begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. Coming back to our space. And when you're ready, come back to the room. Hi. What did it feel like to imagine a new life for your organization from a centered place of your value, grounded in your value? You can throw any answers that you have in the chat, anything that you noticed as you explored that future state. And did it feel different than your as-is state? Did it feel different than perhaps when we normally identify goals to start from a place of value? Your value was courage. I see that in the chat. That is exciting. Amy, will you send me to the next slide, please? This is hard work and it's different work And it's certainly perhaps not the way we normally approach leadership. And it takes practice and vulnerability to be able to connect ourselves with our dreams for the community and thereby our organizations in the process in this new way. So if today felt weird and sticky, that's okay. It should have. But continue to practice ways that you can connect and bridge those pieces of your world together. Next slide, please. So I have some next steps for you that I would love for you to take with you and explore either on your own or perhaps in tandem with your team. But the first would be to identify your personal values. You can start that by listing 3 core personal values that guide your leadership. And think of that as kind of the beginning of defining your personal leadership mission statement. And then identify your team values. What values are emphasized within your team? And again, I made a distinction earlier in talking about our organizational values and our team values. And when I say team values, I really mean what shows up and how we work together, whether that is a prioritizes communication as a value or collaboration. Maybe your team has made the choice to lead with curiosity, to assume positive intent and learn more. Consider which values are emphasized within the team. And then identify 2 strategic goals your organization is pursuing. Next slide, please. This is a very simple values mapping matrix that you can just make on a piece of paper on your own. You don't need anything fancy here, but this helps us to compare those personal, team, and team values against our strategic goals. And then you can make some notes to the side about any alignment or misalignment that you notice. So for example, a personal value might be integrity. And you might identify that a team value is collaboration. Our strategic goal organizationally could be to increase community engagement. And I might notice in reflection that there's strong alignment here between integrity and collaboration. And to pursue this partnership of the personal and team value, this will require trust and shared effort from everyone involved. Next slide, please. And another next step would be to consider some somatic awareness prompts just on your own. So when you reflect on your values, where do you feel them in your body? Those might feel differently to you, depending on the type of value that it is. I often feel curiosity is a very cerebral value. That puts me in the headspace of the head, right? And thinking. But when I feel courage, I feel that in my chest. That's requiring something from deeper in me to respond. Consider what sensations arise when your values align with your work. And what does it feel like when your values are in conflict with your work? Or perhaps when your work is in conflict with your values. There's 2 ways to think about that. And I think the language matters there. And then finally, I'd love for you to consider your commitment. So, what is one action that you could take to lead in alignment with your values? Next slide, please. I'd love to hear through the chat, or you're welcome to ask Amy to come off mute. What is an insight that you might take away with you from today? What did you notice about yourself in this guided reflection? I think I noticed that when we started that somatic reflection at the very beginning, even though I was leading or guiding and not practicing. It helped me slow down and be in partnership with you today in a more intentional way. So I invite you to consider that perhaps um, in your interactions with your colleagues. Ooh, the work felt more possible. Interesting. Love to hear more about that. All right, and next slide. I think that brings us to the end. I want to hold space for any questions or comments or feedback. But this is only the beginning of the possible work here with strategic visioning and values alignment. Values alignment is another wonderful way to help manage yourself as a leader and show up fully integrated and with integrity. Calling on our values in conflict and hard moments allows us to notice what's going on and intervene skillfully. So I always recommend that the more we integrate this values work, the more is possible for both ourselves as leaders and for our organizations. So I'll stick around for a few minutes to see if there's any questions or feedback from today. And I really appreciate you all joining us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Haley. I love how you said this work can feel kind of sticky, especially as you're just getting started and not really sure. I think especially with so many things hitting us at the same time that it just sometimes feels like, oh yeah, someday we'll do that. And I think for me, that's why I put the comment about the work feeling more possible. When I slow down and really focus and center, things feel like, okay, we can do this. A little bit more. So I hope everyone, oh, no, go ahead.
No, I said absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. One of the things that I'm excited to see and be discovering in the work that I'm doing with organizations around this is that when teams are able to define their individual values to their teammates, this is an opportunity for us to call on that in moments of conflict and to be more curious and to respond without judgment when we understand the fundamental makeup of who someone is versus a simple disagreement over perhaps your opinions in the workplace or the way that you think things should be. When we can have these deeper, more intentional conversations, it frees us up. It gives us a lot of grace and space to work better together moving forward.
Okay. Well, let's see. Oh, my last screen disappeared. Well, if you, oh, Kyrie has um, a comment in the chat. That's great. If you have not yet become an Alive member, we're going to highly encourage you to do that. We have some really great sessions. I do want to remind everyone that we are not having an Alive Academy in October. Again, we hope that you will join us for the Alive Volunteer Management Hybrid Conference, where we're talking about showing them the money. And so we look forward to seeing you at the conference. We also would love to see you back in November for our next Live Academy. Thank you all so much for being with us today and for taking this time out to invest in yourself as we do the work.
Thanks
Have a
for
great
trying
day.
something new with me today. Thanks, everybody.